What is formaldehyde? Formaldehyde is a colorless gas with a strong odor that is flammable at room temperature, or it can be a liquid form which is called formalin. It's used in household products and to make building materials. Formaldehyde can be found in paint, carpets, particle board, and some furniture. The Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, considers formaldehyde a probable human carcinogen, but it hasn't established any standards for exposure at this time. Formaldehyde is, however, considered to be one of the substances contributing to sick building syndrome. When an industrial or commercial building that has indoor air quality issues where no specific cause can be found, such as an identifiable contaminant, it is labeled as having sick building syndrome. Signs of sick building syndrome include the fact that at least 1 out of every 5 people exhibit symptoms that disappear when they leave the building. The symptoms could be headaches, sore throat, skin irritations, nausea, scratchy eyes, or tiredness. Buildings that are made to be airtight for energy savings can compound the problem. Heat and humidity can increase the release of residuals. Urea formaldehyde foam insulation, UFFI. In the 1970s, UFFI was often used as a way to reduce energy costs. In existing homes, it served as a retrofit energy-saving product, with urea formaldehyde resin sprayed into areas that were difficult to reach, such as spaces behind walls where it would expand, filling the empty space to better insulate it. Additional formaldehyde was frequently added to extend the shelf life and hasten curing. In 1982, the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission voted to ban the use of urea formaldehyde foam insulation in homes and schools because they felt it posed unacceptable risks due to the formaldehyde content. Subsequently, a law was passed banning the sale of urea formaldehyde, but was revoked soon after because there was not enough documented proof of the dangers. Still, it's not used much in the United States any longer. There is ongoing controversy about whether UFFI is a health threat or not. It's still used in Europe, but not in Canada, and rarely in homes in the United States. Homes that had UFFI decades ago are probably not at risk for pollution, as over time, the levels drop to almost nothing. However, different people react differently to formaldehyde exposure. Some people are very sensitive, while others are unaffected. Children and the elderly might have a lower tolerance. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, regulates manufactured housing formaldehyde emission levels, but those are primarily related to plywood and particle board. Otherwise, there are no official standards, since most UFFI that was once emitting gases has now aged to a point where it is virtually inert. Studies done on workers in industrial jobs and mortuaries found that high exposure to formaldehyde can cause myeloid leukemia and is implicated in rare cancers like sinonasal and nasopharyngeal cancer. It can also cause neurological complications. Formaldehyde gets into the body through breathing it in, and animal tests indicate cancer of the nose is often a result of prolonged intense exposure. Identifying and testing. UFFI looks like hard foam, and it is white to yellow in color. It's not usually visible since it was mainly put in locations that were hard to reach. Unless specified, identifying UFFI is not part of the regular home inspection. If your buyer or seller is concerned about possible levels of formaldehyde, there are 2 main ways to test for it. Use a consumer sampling kit or get a professional to check it. Let's first talk about the way one can use a consumer sampling kit. These are available for purchase by the public. The sample is collected for 1 to 7 days, then sealed and sent to a lab for processing. There are also sampling and analysis kits that do both functions, and the collections don't need to be sent to a lab. The accuracy of these kits can vary, as can the quality of the labs used. It is always recommended to get a professional to check it out. Indoor air professionals can use different methods to test, some of which are not available to the public. They also know what variables in the home can affect the results. Things like whether the home had been closed up, the temperature and humidity, the location of the sample, and the length of time for collection. Since there are not any certification programs for indoor air quality (IAQ) professionals, it's best to get referrals and go through an interview process to make sure the individual is qualified. When air concentrations of formaldehyde are greater than 3 to 5 parts per millimeter, it's considered a potential cancer risk. In the unlikely situation that the UFFI needs to be removed, it can be a costly process, and some type of replacement insulation would have to be put into place. Steps to lower formaldehyde exposure. In addition to testing, the EPA has suggestions on how people can avoid exposure. They point out that air conditioners and dehumidifiers can keep the air temperature cooler and the humidity down, thereby avoiding some typical ways that amplify the level of formaldehyde. Opening windows to increase ventilation will help to lower levels of formaldehyde. Smoking increases the level of formaldehyde, so banning smoking in the building would be beneficial. There is no reliable method to test a person to determine their exposure to formaldehyde, since everybody has some level of formaldehyde that occurs naturally in the body. While formaldehyde danger from UFFI is considered to be a low risk, that doesn't mean formaldehyde might not be present from other sources that are still used today. Carpet and wood product building materials are the most common. Before buying or installing pressed wood products, consumers should find out the specific formaldehyde content, as many of today's materials have different resins and emit fewer gases. Whether you are working with a buyer or a seller, as a real estate agent, you must disclose any defects of the property that you are aware of and urge the same of the property owner. Explain the disclosure laws that apply in the state in which you work and how they affect real estate sales. Local consumer or environmental protection agencies should be consulted for additional information regarding the current concerns about UFFI and formaldehyde in residential homes.